Welcome to the Urantia book. We are looking at a very interesting topic. It all has to fit on all levels. If there's something that is missing, remember that just is your sign that you need to dig a little deeper in order to put all of these various pictures together. What about this? What about that? Well, this book synthesizes all that, and it is meant to do that for everyone, regardless of what their personal religion or viewpoint or anything like that is. And in this process, we can not only ascend personally, but we also are able to have these various truths which will help us unify the planet. And that, folks, is what the fifth epochal revelation is all about. This book is vast, and we are tackling it here one section at a time. So please make sure you like and subscribe. And we are going to learn about the probationary nurseries in the universes. An extremely important topic because, as we learned in the last chapter, individuals only receive the fragment of divinity when they reach that mortal age of choosing, which is around 4 or 5. I forget the exact thing. But it is not at the moment of conception. It is not at the moment of their first birthday or anything like that. So, what happens to these beings, these children, that do not have a spirit fragment? Well, let us find out, okay? The only pre-knowledge really kind of that we have to have, this is the Adamic training of ascenders, and this is on page 515. And these beings, the Adamic beings in the universe, are the material sons and daughters. In fact, we had 2 material sons and daughters on our planet many, many thousands of years ago who were supposed to upstep our DNA and leave behind various DNA that is more receptive to spirituality. The plan got aborted for various reasons that we're not going into at this time, but there is a lot of that DNA still on the planet. Material sons and daughters have their own world in the mansion worlds. Let's look at this. Adamic training of ascenders. They call them Adams and Eves. So that's where we get that kind of similarity with Western man's scriptures. The material sons and daughters, together with their children, present an engaging spectacle which never fails to arouse the curiosity and intrigue the attention of all ascending mortals. They are so similar to your own material sex races that you both find much of common interest to engage your thoughts and occupy your seasons of fraternal contact. Okay, they're material, they're sex creatures. When they come to our planet, that is how they reproduce and leave behind the DNA. They were only supposed to reproduce with each other, though, and that was what happened wrong on our planet. Mortal survivors spend much of their leisure on the system capital, observing and studying the life habits and conduct of these superior. Now, don't let that word trip you up. Superior does not mean better. It does not mean that God loves a material son and daughter more than they love a mortal son and daughter. They are just freaking millions of years old, so they picked up a thing or two about a thing or two. So that's why they're just saying superior semi-physical sex creatures. For these citizens of Jerusalem, that is the name of the system capital, are the immediate sponsors and mentors of the mortal survivors from the time they attain citizenship on the headquarters world until they take leave for Edentia, the next destiny in this vast training regime to ascend mortal man and women up to the level of gods. It is quite a vast regime that we need to undergo in order to learn all of these things in the universe. And these beings are immediate sponsors for us because they near us in that material aspect. On the 7 mansion worlds, ascending mortals are afforded ample opportunities for compensating any and all experiential deprivations suffered on the worlds of origin. So we're dealing with perfection here. If there was one little thing you missed, maybe it was littering. And, well, okay, well, that's great. We're going to compensate for that because we're dealing with perfection, where there's a perfect universe. Whether due to inheritance Environment, think about that. Geez, I had so much better I had great parents. What about all those unfortunate souls who were born into abusive households and that sort of thing? Well, we're going to make up for it in the mansion worlds here. Or unfortunate premature termination of the career in the flesh, and that is the topic that we are discussing. This is in every sense true except in the mortal sex life and its attendant adjustments. I'm not really sure what that means just right off the rip. Thousands of mortals reach the mansion worlds without having benefited particularly from the disciplines derived from fairly average sex relations on their native spheres. Oh, okay. It's literally talking about the parental experience here. That's what they mean by these average sex relations on native spheres. So they're saying these other things are made up for, okay? But now this is how they're going to make up for these types of things. The mansion world experience can provide little opportunity for compensating these very personal deprivations. Sex experience in a physical sense is past for these ascenders, but in close association with material sons and daughters, both individually and as members of their families, these sex-deficient mortals are enabled to compensate the social, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual aspects of their deficiencies. So they're pointing out the importance of the sex experience. And therefore, they're kind of, in a way, saying nobody needs to go out and be a celibate. A celibate type. If you can use that experience to have all of these various things, you're associating with a being of another sex intimately, then you're going to have these social intellectuals. But it's not just if you're just doing sex for its lower natured purposes and just willy-nilly do. It's more of that growth of character that comes with reserving that experience with a special someone so that you can have these emotional connections, spiritual aspects of these connections, not just the physical aspect. Thus are all those humans who circumstances or bad judgment deprived of the benefits of advantageous sex association on the evolutionary worlds, here on the system capitals afforded full opportunity to acquire these essential mortal experience in close and loving association with the supernal atomic sex creatures of permanent residence on the system capitals. Very intriguing relationship that must be. No surviving mortal, midwayer, which is beyond us, it's next closest to angels, or seraphim, which is an angel, may ascend to paradise, attain the Father, and be mustered into the core of finality, which is this really high attainment level of God, without having passed through that sublime experience of achieving parental relationship to an evolving child of the worlds of some other experience, analogous and equivalent thereto. Parental experience is a requirement in the universe because of all the vast things that you learn in this association. In fact, it's impossible to ascend that deep without it. The relationship of child and parent is fundamental to the essential concept of the universal Father and his universe children, and that is why. Therefore, does such an experience become indispensable to the experiential training of all ascenders. When we understand that relationship from both aspects, not just being a parent or the child, but from both, then we can understand our own relationship with the eternal, universal Father. The ascending midway creatures and the evolutionary seraphim must pass through this parenthood experience in association with the material sons and daughters of the system headquarters. Thus do such non-reproducing ascenders obtain the experience of parenthood by assisting the Jerusalem Adams and Eves, the material sons and daughters, in rearing and training their progeny. So they're creating their own progeny, children. And so an angel who's not a sex-reproducing creature will help raise them and gain that experience, that deficiency. All mortal survivors who have not experienced parenthood on evolutionary worlds must also obtain this necessary training while sojourning in the homes of the Jerusalem material sons and as parental associates of these superb fathers and mothers. So you're learning like ultimate father and motherhood here from these, super wise beings. This is true except insofar as such mortals have been able to compensate their deficiencies on the system nursery located on the first transition culture worlds of Jerusalem. So here is this system nursery. Let's learn about that. The probation nursery of Satania, which is basically just the word symbol for our system, which I believe is like 1,000 or 10,000 inhabited worlds. It's a grouping of many inhabited worlds in the Morancha, or I mean, in the actual local universe, is maintained by certain Morancha personalities on the Finalizers world, one half of the planet being devoted to this work of child rearing. Here are received and reassembled, this is the key reason that you clicked on this video, here are received and reassembled certain children of surviving mortals, such as those offspring who perished on the evolutionary world before acquiring spiritual status as individuals. You know, your 1-year-old, 2-year-old. The ascension of either of its natural parents ensures that such a mortal child of the realms will be accorded repersonalization on the system Finalizer planet and there be permitted to demonstrate by subsequent free will choice whether or not it elects to follow the parental path of mortal ascension. Children here appear as on the nativity world except for the absence of sex differentiation. There is no reproduction of mortal kind after the life experience on the inhabited worlds. Okay, so that's something they're saying. That's just a thing that's you're not going to be dealing with anymore. But you're not going to want to because you're going to be so... I've heard this line about any and all of your desires will be fulfilled in the universe provided that they are still your desires. As in, when you ascend to the next level, there's so many more intriguing activities that you're not going to want to be the playboy and have, you know, all the babes chasing after you. Mansion world students who have one or more children in the probationary nursery on the Finalizers world and who are deficient in essential parental experience may apply for a Melchizedek permit, which will affect their temporary transfer from ascension duties on the mansion worlds to the Finalizer world, where they are granted opportunity to function as associate parents to their own and other children. You're reunited to their own children. You see that? If your child goes before you, you can apply to then meet up with them on this probationary nursery or wherever. I don't know where it says it takes place, but and then continue to rear them. This service of parental ministry may be later accredited on Jerusalem as the fulfillment of one half of the training which such ascenders require to undergo in the families of the material sons and daughters. So there's nothing is lost or wasted of spiritual value in the universe. Again, always remember, we're dealing with perfection. We can even witness perfection on just the level of saying, man, isn't it something how this tree can grow from a seed? What kind of mastermind would have to assemble that sort of thing for all these things to come into place for anything in existence? Anything in existence, the fact of existence alone proves its perfection on every single level. And if it's not perfect, as in a war, why would a war happen or anything like that? That is the relative level. But even the fact that people exist in order to have wars shows that there's a perfection inherent in the universe, and we might not understand and attain that perfection until we leave kindergarten here in this first short life in the flesh. And that is exactly what this is in the universe ascent. So there's no need to pull your hair out over the events. Remember, I've said this before, on this planet, it's more about what you're saved out of than what you're particularly going to accomplish. Not that you shouldn't do things, and you should, but just breathe that sigh of relief and say, people are going to go through it, really, you know, this struggle, this tug of war. And we don't need to do that because we've already we've already consecrated our will to do the divine will and ascend. And therefore, this is kindergarten. The probationary nursery itself is supervised by 1,000 couples of the material sons and daughters, volunteers from the Jerusalem colony of their order. They are immediately assisted by about an equal number of volunteer Midsonite, which is they're just a different type of being, parental groups who stop off here to render this service on their way from the Midsonite world of Satania to the unrevealed destiny on their special worlds of reservation among the finalite spheres of Solvington. So when they say unrevealed, all this is revelation, but there are certain things that there's just no point in revealing to us. So that is just a very kind of detailed explanation of the fact that there's this thing called a probation nursery for the beings who are, they're in a different spiritual status because of their just age and ability to choose or anything like that. There is this reuniting that happens. Now, it says you apply for a permit, which to me connotes that perhaps maybe some parents, they say, no, that is not in your best interest that you continue to carry on with that child. I mean, think about there's these women or men and women drowning their kids in the bathtub. You think they're going to apply for a nurse permit in the next thing and then have that be granted? I mean, so I forget where I was going with that, but again, I have such faith that everything is perfect in the universe, but the important point is that does that mean that gods are forever going to keep isolated a being who drowned their children? I don't even know why we're talking about such negativity, but I guess it's just a reality of the world for instructive purposes. That's why we're going into it. Would the divine forever keep them apart and isolated from each other? No. There's reunions, and in fact, they even speak of a reunion between a husband and wife who would later learn that they were soulmates, and they were reunited at the end of the Paradise Ascent after many worlds and many lives and that sort of thing. They journeyed together for a long time, but then they separated for a long time for their training, and then they reunited again in the finality of the experience. So things don't happen in your right order or my right order. They happen in the divine right order. So relaxing and flowing is the way to go. You're going to have all of these great experiences. You're going to have your soulmate is out there. It's required to have these experiences in the universe. You're going to have them. So no need to rush and try to get it now or beat yourself up over it. And if that being still has survival capacity that drowned their child in the bathtub, if they are repentant or just saying, I realize this is like this terrible decision that I made, and the advanced universe beings search their souls and say, they really do regret this and repent this, and they haven't completely lost their spiritual birthright. They were confused, maybe they were abused as a child and so forth. Then maybe when they come to a level of understanding, then they can reunite with their child, and their child must also be at a very vast level of understanding in order to forgive that parent. So that's when I say, or when I see that these certain permits, there's a lot that needs to be taken into consideration, and it's wise. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, folks, thanks again for checking out the Urantia book. Please like and subscribe. See you next time.